Chapter 4 September 1951, Beijing. Part 1. The 3 days dragged by like 3 years. Zoe lived in constant terror. She avoided people's questioning eyes, using the back door to the department building. In the classroom, she stammered her way through the teaching materials, afraid she'd say something unpatriotic. She looked at each student sitting in her classroom, wondering who had written the accusation letter and whether any others wanted to hurt her. Every word, every step was cautious and considered. The 2:50 p.m. bell rang to signal the end of the first afternoon class. Zoe sat shivering at her desk, her fingers nervously clutching the self-examination paper. In a daze, she heard the buzz of conversation as students streamed towards the lecture theatre at the end of the building, where an emergency assembly had been called to hear her self-examination. Never before had she experienced such judgment, fear weighing her down, so heavy that she could hardly move. She spread the paper on the desk and read through it again, one last time. When I left America, the US government was already very anti-Chinese Communist Party and wanted to overthrow the new Chinese government. That's why I left America. Over the past year and a half, I've been occupied by my teaching and research. I have gradually lost my vigilance and awareness of the evils of American imperialism, and my petty bourgeois background confused my intellect. In class, I unconsciously said some things that glorified our enemy and denigrated our motherland, which I deeply regret. I sincerely thank the students, my colleagues, and our leaders for pointing out my mistakes. I have once again realized how dangerous the American imperialists are. They see the Korean War as an opportunity to push China back to an earlier era and subjugate our glorious country as a colony. Of course, we must defend our motherland and uphold our state sovereignty. After reading the paragraph, which she had added in the middle of the night, she sighed with satisfaction. She closed her eyes, imagining people's warm reaction, clapping and shouting "Bravo!" after her presentation. This was the best political article she had ever written. So thorough, she had even convinced herself that the self-criticism was necessary to wake her up and cleanse her of the poison of bourgeois intellectualism she was born with. The sound of the door opening pulled her back to reality. A student stood in the doorway. "Professor Meng, the people are waiting." Zoe nodded and followed the student out of the office. The lecture theatre overflowed with people. Even the doorway was blocked. As soon as Zoe reached the door, however, a gap opened up to let her pass. Her gaze skimmed the slogans plastered on the walls. "Resist U.S. aggression and aid Korea. Protect our homes and defend our country. Down with American imperialism. Long live Chairman Mao. Long live the Communist Party." Zoe hesitated in the doorway, unsure where to go. "Meng Zuyi, stand there," Chief Ma said coldly, pointing at the left corner of the stage. 3 people already sat on the stage behind a desk, their faces solemn. He stepped up to the microphone and tapped it to test the sound system, and then cleared his throat. "Comrades, students, teachers, we gather here today to criticize and denounce Meng Zuyi, an American imperialist sympathizer. Welcome, Comrade Lei from the State Security Bureau, who is attending this meeting." He stopped, waiting for the murmurs in the room to die down. "Since the rallies to resist American aggression and aid Korea broke out, Comrade Meng Zuyi has become more and more negative about the war. Recently, she openly criticized our country and praised our enemy, the American imperialists." We can't allow this kind of reactionary thought to spread, to poison our students, and to weaken our revolutionary will. Meng Zhuyi, you must do a thorough self-examination. He paused again, shooting a hostile glare in her direction for several seconds. Comrade Meng Zhuyi, start your self-examination now. Respectful Chief Ma, leaders, comrades, and students. Recently, I have not actively joined the political movement or studied socialist thought and remodeling, and I have made some fundamental mistakes. I deeply regret. She had read the paper through so many times that she practically recited it, her eyes barely registering the words on the page. She was interested in science, not politics, and had only started writing the self-criticism after reading all the newspapers she could find. But as the words flowed, her voice gained confidence. This was her 5th draft, 6 pages long and full of strong political words she had dutifully copied from the newspapers. Hoping that this self-examination would be the end of all her troubles, she tried to cover every possible angle, where her pro-American thinking had come from, how it had taken root, what her new class consciousness had taught her, and what actions she would take to correct her mistakes. She concluded her paper. Chairman Mao said if intellectuals don't integrate with the masses of workers and peasants, they will achieve nothing. Chairman Mao also said that a true revolutionary is the person who is willing to become one with the masses of workers and peasants. I want to cast off my old petty bourgeois self and become a true revolutionary. From now on, I will actively participate in any political movement and integrate with the masses of workers and peasants at mass rallies on every possible occasion and at every possible location. I will listen to comrades' criticism and will follow the party's instructions to reform and remold my ideology. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to correct myself. Silence hung in the auditorium. Zoe heard no clapping or cheering as she had imagined. People sat motionless, waiting for a signal of approval or disapproval. Chief Ma exchanged a few inaudible words with the state security officer, and then came back to the microphone. Comrade Meng Zhuyi, will you tell us what your connection with America is? I studied there for 5 years. What else? What does he mean? She wondered, confused. Chief Ma waited impatiently for several seconds. Who did you have strong connections with when you were there? Lots of people, relatives, teachers, students, home countrymen, people like that. Who have you kept in contact with since coming back to China? Relatives and friends. What kind of friends? Other students, teachers, and home countrymen. Who is John Thompson? Losing patience, Chief Ma spat out the name. Zoe said nothing, staring at him with dilated eyes. Horror began to rise in her belly. Is he an American spy? No. Terror dropped her voice to a whisper. No, he's a good American. He used to be my teacher there. Did he recruit you to be a spy? The shock of the accusation brought out her inclination to fight for justice. Her chin snapped up, her shoulders straightened, and her eyes fixed directly on Chief Ma. He is a pure scientist, a peace-loving man. He would never become a spy. Chief Ma watched her, expressionless, and waited. With an effort, she brought her emotions under control and said nothing more. Thud! Chief Ma threw a bundle of letters on the table, breaking the silence. You dare to deny it? What's this? The string broke when the pile hit the table, scattering the letters across the surface. Some of them fluttered to the floor by her feet. She gasped in recognition and shock. They were letters she and John had written to each other. Her fists clenched at her side as realization dawned, and she suddenly understood why she hadn't heard from John. For months, their correspondence had been under scrutiny by the Chinese government. Their love was prohibited. That's it. I've lost John forever. Closing her eyes in despair, she felt the room spinning around her. She opened her mouth to scream, to tell them all how unfair they were, but nothing came out. Chief Ma continued his denunciation for a long time, and then the state security officer started his questioning. Comrade Meng, you must confess thoroughly to the people here today. How long have you been an American spy? What secrets have you leaked to them? This man you write to, is he your direct contact? Who does he work for? Why did they send you back? What is your mission now? No, that's not what happened, Zoe interrupted. She couldn't stand these accusations, these lies, any longer. Her voice shook with anger, the words stifled as if a cotton ball was stuck in her mouth, choking her. She brushed her hair back with unsteady fingers, trying to control the anger that raged inside her. He is my fiancé. We are planning to marry soon. We've been in a relationship for nearly 4 years. He is not China's enemy. He is just an ordinary teacher and scientist. We haven't done anything wrong. You say he's not China's enemy, but let me make something clear to everyone here. In every letter, this American criticizes our government for supporting Korea and insults our new China. He claims that America is helping South Korea to defend its territory, while China aids North Korea to invade the South and turn the North into our little colony. Are those the thoughts of a friend or an enemy? Chief Ma stood up, grabbed a handful of letters and waved them. And you have the same attitude as him. You completely agree with him. How many times in your letters did you describe our new society in negative terms? How many government secrets have you leaked? Judging from these letters, you have some arrangement, a code for passing messages back and forth. What is it? Is the American spy coming here, or will you escape overseas to meet him? Zoe had an intense desire to pick up the letters and run away, but she barely had the strength to hold her head up. She fought to still her shaking knees, sure she would collapse. Down with American imperialists! Suppress counter-revolutionaries! Voices from the audience started shouting slogans, gaining in strength and volume. Before long, the whole room echoed with them. For half an hour, the thunder continued, deafening her, pounding into her body like a stream of bullets, until she lost all sense of pain and just stood, dazed and unblinking. Chief Ma finally silenced them. In order to consolidate our socialist government and win the final victory of the war, we must cleanse our class. Comrade Meng Zuyi, you are not allowed to teach any classes until you purge imperialist impurities from your thoughts and actions. Until further notice, you will write a self-criticism once a week. Zoe lowered her head and closed her eyes, wishing she was dead.